third report on the Yildera expedition. Arrival. As our vessel approached the shattered planet of Yildera II, we couldn't help but feel stunned. Even from a distance, we could see a world almost preserved in time, where countless husks of destroyed megacities clashed against numerous craters of untold proportions. All was full view of the cooled core of what was once a massive econopolis. Parts of the former orbital ring remained floating in space, while other parts could be found crashed into the shards of the planet below. Being on the edge of the galaxy, on first glance it seems that none of the current empires have been to the system yet. Readings also suggest that some sort of ancient technology kept a hyperlane network between it and the rest of the galaxy weak, not strong enough to be detected by most empires, but still here. Perhaps it once did block off the hyperlane network entirely. While we would have loved to begin searching the rest of the planet's surface, our mission remained clear. Enter the recently discovered bunker complex and search it for any knowledge we could find about this planet. We don't have much time before another empire lays claim to this system. In all likelihood, what happened to this planet will be found within this bunker. If everything goes well, we will obtain rights to study other points of interest on the planet afterwards, but the crew's hopes for that are low. Let's hope our tip pays off. Torkin signing off. The following records were gathered from the Curator archives of a hive-minded fungoid species which called itself the Hoizin. The species seemed to have originated as a fungoid brain disease, which seized control of an entire mammalian species. Records of the Hoizin before and after the age of the Hoizin Reflective Consciousness are few and far between, and much of what we believe we know comes from the H.R.C. itself. After extensive studies upon both these records and the other few remains we could find, quirks within the Hoizin species has made it a fascinating case study on the nature of hive minds and those within them. The most notable trait within the species was its adaptability. The species itself often rapidly evolved and changed over mere generations without direct hive mind intervention, and had a large habit of surviving in the worst or most inhospitable conditions. This seemingly came with a drawback, for their hive minds themselves were prone to internal disorder, and as proven in this document, fractured in its totality at least once. Though the species is now believed to be extinct and their history mostly lost to time, a recent treasure trove of data has been gathered by a Curator Archeologist team who were investigating a site on one of the fractured shards of the former city world of Yildera II. Using a tip given by a friendly empire, they obtained the location of a bunker complex defended by a now defunct shield. The following information packet originates from the final reports submitted by Torkin. Fourth report of the Yildera expedition. Initial investigation. It is unknown for what exact circumstances led to this facility surviving the cracking of this world, nor the countless bumps found across said shards, which suggests that the planet was once bombarded by numerous asteroids. Nothing within would help in answering this either. Opening the bunker, it was clear that it was designed well. Though clear signs of disrepair were present, the structure seemed to be stable, with few signs of erosion or environmental degradation. In other words, the bunker has been completely preserved without exterior interruption. The entrance had a curious installation, which had suggested itself to be some sort of shopping center. Alongside the ancient currency and logistical records, we found multiple ancient texts. Though they themselves were broken down, the still active computers had reserved transcripts of them preserved, which we downloaded. This shopping center suggested that the mind designed it to be amenable to non-hive visitors. At the end of the shopping center, we found a door to a storage room filled with 24 planetoid-designed drones. Most were broken down, but a few were still plugged into the walls, attempting to charge up. Though their logs were partially corrupted, it was revealed that the facility generated enough power that they could continue their programmed daily cleanup once every 2,624 years. With only a few left charging, we believe that they may be the reason why the facility is kept so well, with their last activation date being 40 years ago. A collapsed shrink space depot was also found here, suggesting that everything within was enough for the robots to preserve the facility for the hundreds of millions of years that it is believed to have been around. The depot is sadly no longer accessible. Further into the maintenance rooms, the generator room was discovered. Running off a dark matter generator, examinations showed that it took devastating damage from some enormous tremor, believed to be the force of the planet cracking, and currently is operating on standby mode. Though generating limited power, it seems that most is routed further into the facility. We were lucky to reach this bunker before another civilization, for this technology could have greatly upset the galaxy's tenuous balance of power. Returning to the entrance, we proceeded further into the facility, and alongside the walkway we found a couple of frozen Hoizin varietas corpses. We could not find any living microorganisms on them, and the genetic makeup of the bodies were too broken down to be able to collect useful genetic samples. We believe that after the generator was damaged, power was rerouted to them, while the various robot caretakers disinfected the entire facility, including the dead corpses. Soon we would stumble upon a crossroads. One led to a long hallway, while another seemed to be the administrative center of the facility. We started with the administration and found countless ancient records. After sifting through these records, we believe that this was a sort of museum, which also was used as a storage center for all core Hoizin memories, all the way from the memories this mind had as it first formed to a point of unknown historical importance. In particular, it was discovered that their system for years was with the hundreds, with the last year discovered being 474. Translation efforts, however, proceeded slowly, and a portion of our expedition stayed behind while the rest left for the long hallway. For almost 30 minutes we walked down the hallway, observing the countless artifacts, ancient relics, historical plaques, and various statues of alien beings, presumably from their era. The countless artifacts and specimens we found always related in some form to life and death, suggesting that this hive mind was obsessed with its mortality and was finding meanings through it. Of note, we also found a well-preserved seedling of their vaunted mother tree, which now has been moved to an undisclosed curator station. At the end of the hallway, we found double doors leading to a large chamber. Within, we found an auditorium which could perhaps fit tens of thousands of individuals, with the seating seemingly varied for different species. At the center of the stage, we found a podium which melded seamlessly into the ground, any paint or decoration long gone, leaving behind a metal fixture. On the floor behind it, metal framing connected the podium to the back wall, and after uncovering it, we found a variety of wires and tubes. We found an array of hexagon-shaped panels scattered across the back wall, with a few panels broken off. Behind each one, what could be described as flesh, a slow but steady rhythm believed to be a form of breathing. Using some scanners, we also detected a shrink space depot behind it, with pipes going through it. We believe that the biomatter which sustained what was in the podium for all these years could be found within. It is unknown how much is left. At the center of the podium, connected by a mix of countless wires and nerves, lay a circular glass orb which held a small brain. Below it was a single metal socket, seemingly designed to allow direct connections between the brain stored here and the host. After extensive review of both the socket and other scans from both within and outside the bunker facility, it is believed that the smaller piece of the brain presented within the podium itself was the cerebrum of the entire being. The rest of the brain was thus reserved for the basic biological functions required to keep it alive, and what preserved much of the vast recollection of the hive. After revisiting the frozen Hoizin Vivera corpses, their purpose became clear. While initially believed to be the frozen guardians meant to awaken upon the museum's infiltration, their notably enlarged skulls and the cybernetic modifications in their appendages revealed that they would plug themselves into the brain's central metallic socket, and thus communicate with the brain's memories to what we would assume to be the rest of the hive. Why exactly they wouldn't maintain this information at one of their hive worlds is at this point unknown. This would also explain why the backup reactor only preserved the life support systems of the brain, robots, and the depots, but didn't try to preserve the connector drones. They could replace them, but they couldn't regrow their memories. After a week of studying and preparation, we continuously failed to establish a secure computer connection. Attempt after attempt, it seemed that it would almost irrationally refuse it, and we were at a loss with the clock ticking. Eventually, one of the archaeologists, whose specialty was in cybernetics, took a large risk. Using one of the Hoizin's cybernetic appendages, he connected himself to the brain. He then began to consciously communicate with it, repeating their conversations to us. Initially, we were disappointed. The brain itself has been locked into a forced coma ever since the facility was shut down, and could tell us little about what led up to these events. And for hours, it would seem that it would get confused on the most basic of questions, taking entire minutes to respond with brief statements. When we requested to access the memories of the brain, however, it quickly sped up. Restating that its cognition was minuscule, it affirmed us that we would receive the same story it would give it to any visitor of this museum. Most perspectives found from the hive minds are either found in written historical records, or perhaps brief statements that were given between us and the hive. But this, we had perhaps over 4 centuries of history preserved in a tongue which was only ever meant for Hoizin comprehension and recollection. Or in other words, an insight into hive minds which usually can only be reached by a very specific type of hive mind, known as empaths. And as we prepared our computers and notepads, the scientists began to tell us the story of the hive mind known as Seeker. Torkin signing off. The rest of this archaeological archive will be devoted to what our scientists recovered from the brain and their responses and communications with it. Something which can be disorientating is that this hive mind speaks as if the memory is the present, but occasionally will make a statement about what was then their current day. Our scientists also agree that while age certainly caused many smaller memories to fade, the most important memories, and even the hive's exact train of song, were saved quite well. Now, everything the brain told us is now recorded below. Pain, fear, terror. That is what we felt when the first of us became one with our hosts. They tried to eject us. They first used calculated cuts to dissect us when we were small. They then used cold metal to slice us off. For many of us, we felt them clawing into their skulls as we neared us becoming one. Once we became one with our hosts, the fear and terror felt by them became nothing. The pain remained. Many of us had to rest for many months, while countless others died from the wounds inflicted upon themselves. After our first hosts became one with us, we felt something different. A surge of strength came to us, a surge of feeling. We felt and sought little before we became one. The hosts were merely prey to us, something to consume, until we ourselves joined together not as predator consuming prey, but as two brains fusing into one. After we became one, everything changed. The we were a part of became not other members of us, but were themselves filled with terror. Before they could do much damage, we captured them. We fed them, we kept them warm, and we kept them alive. This was the day we were born. Soon any disconnection meant that we would die without them, and they would die without us, as our hosts and us became inseparable. Their minds became ours, their primal urges became ours, all while our former us remained disorientated. We couldn't exist in a state of internal agony. Soon we explored the jungle surrounding us, forever leaving behind the bogs which bore us. We found more villages, captured more of them, brought our former us, and molded them together as we did. They became we. Soon our kind were united in meaning. Those of ours not yet united found hosts, and their fear too dissipated, as we all understood. Numerous villages were consumed to become one with us, and other villages held us off and forced us to retreat. For untold cycles of light and darkness, we evolved. Basic caves and structures became reinforced and populated. Seeds once experimented with in the dirt by our hosts soon became rows of plant life cared for and grown by us. Our beings fused in their totality with our hosts, and what once were external growths soon took refuge in the body itself. Appendages grew from our hosts, made of us, and it accelerated the formation of us. Normalcy soon arrived for us. Confusion became exhaustion, and rest turned this exhaustion into acceptance. What didn't leave was hunger. We hungered. We sought to taste, to relish, to enjoy. Pleasure was only found through taste and reproduction, while we became restless. Countless times, groups of us would try to brave the jungles, build new towns, taste new beings, but soon they would too leave us. For an unknown amount of time, this was our entire existence, being contained within these jungles and maintaining a strict amount of us at one time, lest hunger turn us against each other. These limits and our unsatiated hunger would cause members of us to drift away into the dark jungles, seeking sustenance and thrill. If they didn't return soon, their voice would eventually disappear, only after a final cry of pain. During one of these instances, we heard something strange. A deviant which returned heard faint thunder in the distance, through one of the more dangerous areas of the jungle. After that, we remembered our hosts. We stopped seeking them out after we united us, but they may remain outside the jungles. They may be the source of the thunder. A small number of us would soon venture out after this realization, and as they explored the unusually quiet, dangerous areas, stumbled into a group of strange beings. These beings wore unfamiliar fabric, not made of hide, covering themselves head to toe in it, and they wielded sticks made with what looked like wood and metal. Thunder came from their sticks, and soon overwhelming pain came to any of us who was struck with such thunder. They rode other beings, others which were not our hosts, but were not unfamiliar to us. Former prey we hunted deeper in the jungle before we evolved. We outnumbered the small group of beings 3-1, but were forced to scatter within the jungles after they launched thunder into the sky. Some of us tried to continue by going around them, but were horrified to find more. Every clearing, everywhere to go, was blocked by these beings. We panicked. Some of us began to fortify a central node, while more of us searched around us. We soon realized that we were surrounded. We were overwhelmed with emotion. Many of us suffered from accidents or incidents related to this stress, and more of us struggled to operate our duties. We began falling apart, and multiple times drones had to be killed to prevent them from completely deviating entire villages from our will. The different villages founded by us began needing direct assistance from the central mind, without such attention leading to their starvation or destruction from once contained hostile prey. As we feared, we soon saw the beings again in one of our smaller villages, nearby First Contact. As we hid, a group of 4 of the beings rode into the center of one of our villages. They dismounted their creatures of prey and began walking further in. Confused, one took off their cowl. They were all hosts. Without hesitation, we soon surrounded them. Overwhelmed in the moment, the 4 went back to back, shaking their sticks and pointing it at any of us who got too close. For minutes we stood this way, thinking. We didn't know what to do, but our hunger became overwhelming. Our isolation within the jungles, and the quick deaths of those who hungered, tamed us. But as we saw the prey tied up in front of one of our warrens, we became overwhelmed with hunger. Many of us abandoned the 4 hosts and consumed the tied animals. They kicked and squealed, but soon they succumbed to us. The 4 hosts began firing sunder at us, but quickly we overwhelmed them too. Without hesitation, we became one with them. Compared to the older hosts, they quickly and painlessly joined us. It took time for us to adjust to their larger brains, but after some time, they became us. We then learned everything. The hosts seem to have evolved past their former primitive state and have spread across the whole planet. They tamed much of the accessible planet to their whims, while numerous creatures and prey became subservient to them. And us? Before this day we were rumors, merely a source of stories of undead hosts, which lumbered within these jungles, which killed all who entered. However, we believe that the hostile jungles around us killed both our deviant drones and them, and that their new six asunder, or guns as they called, allowed them to get closer to us than ever before. After all, according to them, we were in one of the most dense and dangerous jungles discovered on the planet. As they became us, we finally understood. We would only get outnumbered or die out if we stayed in these dangerous jungles. We must instead become one with all the hosts. 2 of the 4 with undamaged suits quietly snuck through a cleared area and past the rest of the guards, soon infiltrating a nearby city. While our mind was overwhelmed by the size of the city after it became one with us, soon we understood every piece of how it was built, how it operated, what was known about it. Wherever we arrived, many hosts would flee. Soon we faced entire armies of the hosts, attempting to storm in with bright clothing and use their guns to exterminate what they believed were rebels. They soon joined us. City after city, continent after continent, the hosts and their nature to flee became their undoing, as many of us would join them, using them as a way to infiltrate wherever they arrived. Less than 7 months, the 8 continents were one with us. Another 6 months, and not one community of more than 100 hosts existed. Our hunger drove us onwards. We quickly began consuming the animals, cooking, dicing, chopping, tasting them all. Our hunger consumed many of the animals. Our hunger almost consumed the plants, but we held back. Meanwhile, the differences between older and newer hosts became much clearer after we became one with them all. Many with stronger minds became more assertive, and could even sway many of the other members of us against the will of our central mind. Instead of attempting to cleanse a large chunk of ourselves, we decided to simply adapt. We allowed many of these offspring more autonomy, more ability, and even in some cases, to preserve parts of their memories and who they were with them. Most of the host's memories would be lost to us after our mind fractured, but a few individual ones remain in other memorial centers, like recent memory. Even with our consolidation of what was now tyrants, we still needed to consume more. We had to consume more. As centuries went by, we grew. The planet was tamed. Every animal was consumed or joined a legion of farms, which would allow us to forever consume them. We embraced gunpowder, then coal, then steam, then atoms, and soon we used our star itself. As our numbers swelled, the hunger grew ever larger. The memories of our former hosts became even weaker, and our unity began to quietly fracture. We covered up our faults with an obsession of hunger, and that hunger kept us warm. We then went outwards from our star. Every star we found, we built outposts. Every world we found, we seized, and every species we found, we consumed. One species was an aquatic one, developing basic bronze tools. They were few, but they are remembered as the tastiest ones. The least tasty were a slug-like species on a radioactive world, which had a nasty habit of exploding into acid before consumption. As we grew, our mind began to struggle. Numerous different worlds would be absorbed, our different wants and needs becoming so intense that the strain of it all had to be increasingly delegated to our offspring. Meanwhile, countless offspring journeyed from the mind. Some with vast fleets, others with small armies. Infiltration became ever common, for each offspring often sought personal glory or to be the first to taste new species. All across the galaxy, we spread like a plague, appearing out of nowhere through seemingly unknown means. While we always experienced some level of pain or discomfort when hunting for prey, the different species of prey began to work closer and closer together. Soon every species we would fight fought back harder, and their worlds cost more to consume. After that, it would slow down the fighting hard for each world we could reach. We inhabited vast fleets, which would battle with cherished prey, but slowly they caused more and more losses against us. We consumed much of the known galaxy, but it only slowed down the more bloated we became. We began to become confused. Our union with the hosts were not only essential to our mutual survival, but was easily called for. The selfish nature of individual hosts only harmed themselves, and only through total unity did we find success. But the prey began to sacrifice not only for their own families, but then their own species, and then even for other prey species. At the time, we didn't care. We only saw them as food. We didn't yet see. Soon everything changed. Our largest armadas amassed over a black hole, preparing to strike the prey and see the world overflowing with prey. Their forces usually were meager or unorganized. This time was different. They hit us hard. Our offspring were assassinated. Our fleets became disorganized. We felt much pain. A chorus of suffering was sung, then suddenly silence. Not one of us from that battle survived, and the pain was unbearable. We felt dread. Not dread for the suffering to come as our fleets pushed forwards. We felt dread for that we understood we were on the cusp of understanding something dangerous. Across our worlds, we became dazed and overwhelmed, as if we were locked back into those jungles eons ago. Our mind began to struggle. We hungered. We always hungered. But now we feared. We wondered. The offspring we relied on began to question the mind itself. We told ourselves that. Many of us began to blame the autonomous drones for our failures. We began to spite them. We began to hate them. Us we built for so long began to be divided. Then we fractured. Our mind tried to destroy our offspring. We tried to cut out the rotten limb, but we didn't realize that there was no rot to cut out. So with the blade we kept digging. Soon the offspring began fighting back. We didn't know what to do. We didn't truly know which of us was right. The offspring soon swayed many of us from ourselves, and many of us didn't even know what was controlled by us, and what was controlled by our deviant drones. We began to feel guilt for what we've done, but it was too late. An overwhelming pain of fighting and starvation was felt by us. Every colony fell apart, the supply chains vanished, and various offspring fought us and each other. Tyrant itself soon fell to the species coalition, while the other worlds saw complete collapse. The offspring often tried to sway the worlds they were on, but they were not as strong as the mind, and soon faltered and died out. The cities upon our own world of Vivera were soon abandoned. The different emotions and allegiances of the drones, that much of the city exterminated itself using whatever weapons were in their disposal, and for many years bodies littered the streets, rotting. Across the world, we united, then shattered, again and again and again. Anger, hatred, fear, starvation, guilt. These were felt by us. Parts of us began to need change. Parts of us began to need stability. Some of us yearned for the days of old, while some of us yearned for perfecting ourselves. All of us wanted the pain and suffering to go away, while diverging more on how. We kept fighting ourselves for what seemed to be endlessly. We fought ourselves for no reason we could understand. Other species arrived and would wipe our main populations out, but would eventually leave. We would go back to fighting. Many of us couldn't even understand what was going on. Many of us lost the ability to communicate, instead becoming beasts similar to the ones we once became one with. Many of us felt that we would remain like this for all of eternity, endlessly fighting ourselves for nothing. One day, a group of us was blocked off from escape by giant beasts. We were forced to take refuge in the deep caves of the planet. For months we walked, suffered, and starved. For months we went through perilous underground biomes, collapsed chasms, and chambers filled with Hoizin bones. Eventually, we exited the caves to an isolated paradise. Towering mountains surrounded a central oasis of green grass and smaller wildlife, almost as if the mountains were this little paradise's shield, as if the world itself sought to cradle this patch of land away from the violence and deaths which could be found across the rest of the planet. With no clear exit out, we continued into the center of it all. That was when we stumbled upon the mother tree. Scattered around the massive tree were our bones. Each, we soon learned, were those who became like animals and even attempted to consume the tree. Soon the group approached closely, our appendages molded together with the roots of the tree. For days the feelings of famine disappeared. For days shelter were provided by the tree. For days we found only peace. After we disconnected, we finally understood. Our hunger was gone. Our guilt was gone. The hatred and anger we held on to for so long became non-existent, and those who were a part of the group looked up to the stars. There was so much to learn, so much for us to understand, so much for us to build, so much for us to love. The tree brought this back to us. As time went on, more of us were drawn to it and approached the tree, and a new settlement was founded around it. As decades went on, we relearned what we lost. We became united again as our brains were enlarged from the nutritious sap of the tree, and the minds of the disconnected drones, too, joined us because of the tree. This is when we were born. Everything before were like faint memories that didn't belong to us, but now we truly felt alive. For decades we found fulfillment, and soon we sought to spread the gifts of the tree across the planet. For decades further, the tree's saplings and roots would grow near new villages and cities across the planet, while many of us cleared the bodies from the ruins and began to rebuild them. Other primitive minds sometimes tried to exist, but as they found the mother tree, they understood. Most would voluntarily join us afterwards, and the few who refused often were too consumed by their hunger to reason with, and had to be consumed and crushed. As countless bones of our ancestors were buried or immortalized in centers of reflection, we began to ponder. Our minds clear of the hunger we so long craved, we thought about who we were, what we were. We consumed all in our past, but what was there to admire from that? We still remembered the delicious taste of many species, but what of the memories of their sufferings? The faces of fear given from those chosen to be protectors, the faces of horror we saw when we consumed those in our homes, the faces of hopelessness we saw when their ends came near. We came to realize that we never cared to understand the degree of what we were doing, what harm we did. But does that matter? Does our existence merit any purpose, or are we simply doubting our fair decisions? We didn't yet know what to think. All we knew, though, was that we couldn't do it all again. Not like that. As the decades under the mother tree went on, our technological recovery was rapid. From a mix of ancient memories, old records, and ancient ruins, we gathered countless amounts of knowledge which aided in our recovery. Notably, however, our memories were too vague to exactly know how old our species was, nor even the time period our Hoizin swarm originally terrorized the galaxy. Soil samples from the most well-preserved buildings suggested that they were constructed around 22,000 years ago. Did we spend 22,000 years in absolute agony, or were these constructs built before us? We still do not know. Because of our varied history, we also weren't able to arrive to a solid conclusion on when our time should start. While our old mind obviously didn't care much about maintaining historical records, we do. Losing trace of what happened in a year, much easier without a functional time system, would also doom our memories and the memories of countless sapiens to be muddled, then forgotten. After much deliberation, we decided to begin year 1 and when we discovered the mother tree. At the conclusion of these decades, our mind found our drones meeting each other in the center of the world. While the area lower of the equator was not yet tamed, the entire northern equator was finally secured in one widespread landmass, controlled by us. While we continued to consume much of the plants and animals, great care went into preserving the existence of species on the brink, while avoiding total destruction of the different environments across the world. Our technological recovery during this time also saw an interesting development. Where the further north a being would go, the more chaotic and disorganized it seemed to be. After the southern equator was secured, we finally launched our own rocket into the stars. Our eyes could finally see the beautiful stars once lost from us. Our older mind, our older beliefs, who we once were, never loved the stars as we do now. Never wondered of what were in them, otherwise what there was to be consumed. But we do now. Though yes, our memories are of the drones which survived our older fracturing, we have been reversed, and we knew that we would build ourselves a new legacy. The sacred mother tree gave us a bedrock on which our hive can use to focus its mind, havens of love and warmth which gives our hive the resolve to face the coldness of space and the scorching stars. So, when we pondered over what would go on our flag, it was simple. A shining star, glistening over a dark green background of the jungles we came from, with a single light green stripe representing our new start. The star is the tree, which through life or death shall forever guide us forwards. As we secured control of our home system, we understood what needed to be done. We must continue to grow and prosper, and the proliferation of the mother tree must be done at any cost. We knew we needed to expand every direction like we once did. Just we still were not sure what we should do with any species which got in our way. Total consumption wasn't off the table, but we nevertheless missed countless lessons and stories that we could have learned from. We wouldn't repeat this mistake a second time. We also knew that we couldn't rapidly invade every neighbor like we once liked to. Not total annihilation, at least. If we do such a thing, the inferior species will, of course, unite against us. Would they still do that anyways? How long has it been since we tried to consume the stars? Would they seek their revenge against us for actions our flawed mind made? If they were out there, what would they think of us? What would we find out there? The only way to find out was to venture back into the darkness.